What's up, everyone? In today's video, I'm going to be showing you my game plan to when I play my friend that's ranked 1800. As many of you know, my ELO is only at 1050, so it may look like I don't have much of a chance, but I have a week to prepare. So I wanted to do something not as well known. So I decided to go with the English opening. And this starts with pawn to c4. And the way it works, I'll show you how it'll work in a second. But I just wanted to show you first the three main ways it'll be countered. So your opponent could play c5 and replicate what you did, or they could play e5 to grab control of the center. They can even try to bring in their knight to f6 to make sure that you can't move your pawn to e4. And I mean, I rarely ever see this, but they may even play d5. But the problem with this is you would probably take, and when they would take back, you'll have more pawns in the center, and so that's not really an option for them. So let's just say that the most common move would be pawn to e5, and now I have a few options. I could either bring out the knight early, or I can push pawn to e4. My plan for the game would be to push pawn to e4, and then say my opponent plays the knight to f6. I will respond with pawn to d3, allowing me to protect both pawns. And the pawn at d3, of course, will be heavily defended. And then later, my opponent may bring out his knight, and see this as right here as an outpost, since I've already brought out both of my pawns. I will then just bring out my knight and look at the attack options I have. I'm looking later at a pawn storm on, I want a pawn storm on the left side as my main attack, and kind of use the knight to my advantage later on. I also want to try bring into the game the bishop by bringing it to g5, and then developing on the right side and castling. So hopefully, so I have 3 attacks planned and some very good defenses. I mean, hopefully they work. I have actually tested out my English opening on 2 other players, and I won both of those games. So, I mean, that kind of works. So we're gonna rewind. So, say my opponent doesn't play e5. Say he plays c5. Maybe he'll be confused, and instead of grabbing the center, he just wants to match whatever I do. So I've thought of this too. I would just put my pawn to e4 immediately. There's a few ways for him to respond to that. He could bring his pawn to e5, or he could bring the knight to f6. If he brings the knight to f6, then I will just merely push. So let me just show you what that looks like. So he moves, and I move, and then now he can't move here. He can't move here or here. The only move he has is to this square, and that won't be good either. So I'll show you. So when he moves his pawn here, or his knight here, I can just move my pawn up to d3, and pressuring the knight. Moving back to either one of these squares is out. This here is blocked, so he can't move to any of these 3. And then he also cannot move to g5 because of the newly opened bishop. So that's a no. Obviously, he wouldn't be able to move to g3 because of these 2 pawns here. and he's definitely not moving to d2. That would just be silly. So now that's why and also going back to this, even if I do get here, if he goes to any other place, he'll be taken. So he can only go back in. So knight is not a good move. There's always the e5 pawn. It would have, if he had played the c5, the e5 pawn would have most likely had to have been played sooner in order for it to be effective. So I have a few options here. I could bring out my knight to c3, or I could develop my other knight to f3. I can also bring my pawn to d3, or this could be a little risky, but I could bring my queen all the way out to h5. I will most likely play pawn to d3, and then my opponent will probably play something like knight to c6, looking for this outpost here. And then I'll go on to play the knight, and then the game will go on. Alright, so there's one last thing my opponent could play. What if he plays the knight? So this is a little. So he's not matching what I do. He's not grabbing the center. He's developing his pieces and stopping me from being able to push to the center. What I would do in this situation was bring out my knight. I want to the bird opening always needs the knight to come out eventually, but here I'm gonna bring it out a little early. One other reason why is because it protects the center. This will allow me to bring out my pawn later in the future. So say the reason why he played the knight was to play the King's Indian defense. Then that will start the pawn, and then I could bring out my pawn, and then he'll bring out his bishop. Then I'd bring out my other pawn, and then he'll follow with d6. Now he has the King's Indian defense set up. I will most likely try something like this. I'll bring out the bishop. I want to bring out the bishop because I like a trade here. This will allow me to bring my knight closer, and without his knight trading, because the trade on the square would not be favorable for me. And then he'll immediately castle, and then make my trade. He's going to use bishop, of course, and now I could bring out my knight, kind of pressuring his bishop. He'll most likely bring the bishop back, and now I set up this nice defense. I will then begin my attack. I'll start bringing in the knight, and then actually no, that would be a mistake. I would probably actually, going back to this, moving the knight here would actually not be a good idea. So then he could just immediately take here. Better move instead might be to to begin pawn storming. Oh wait, whose move is it? Oh yeah, it's his move here. He would probably try to push the knight back, and then it'll keep getting pushed back, and I'll never really get control of this square. So, that may not work out. The King's Indian defense might actually work against the English. But if you haven't heard of Gotham Chess, he made a video about the English, and in there he covered the King's Indian defense against it, so you should definitely check that out. So I think I would just, instead I would develop my pieces, and then just castle, since what I showed you earlier would most likely lead to my knight getting kicked or my pawn getting taken. So thank you for watching this video, and once I complete the game, I will show you hopefully I can win this because it'll give me inspiration to reach ELO of 1500 by the end of the year, and